Picture a man whose life, measured in thousands of sheep, camels, and servants, 10 beloved children, and a reputation as the greatest in the East, collapses in a single day. No crimes, no warnings, just relentless disaster. Behind that ruin, ancient texts claimed something even more unnerving. Good people may suffer not as punishment, but as part of a wager no human ever sees. But what if the real test is faith with no explanation? Here's how the evidence unfolds. Job's reputation stretched across the ancient Near East, not as a warlord or king, but as a man known for his integrity. The record describes him as blameless and upright, someone who feared God and avoided evil. He lived in the land of Uz, a region east of Palestine, where his standing wasn't measured only by words, but by numbers that rivaled the wealthiest leaders of his time. 7,000 sheep grazed under his care, a sign of immense prosperity in an age when most families owned just a handful. 3,000 camels moved with the trade caravans. 500 yoke of oxen plowed his fields, and 500 donkeys added to his estate. The scale of his household demanded many servants, all working under his direction. Beyond material wealth, Job was a father to 7 sons and 3 daughters, a large family by any standard, each child representing both legacy and vulnerability. His daily life reflected a seriousness about faith that went beyond routine. Every morning, Job would rise early to offer burnt sacrifices for each of his children, reasoning that even a hidden thought or careless word deserved attention. This wasn't superstition, it was responsibility, an act of intercession for the unseen corners of his family's hearts. In his world, blessing was never assumed, and spiritual vigilance was part of his daily practice. The evidence paints a profile of a man whose character matched his fortune, whose habits revealed a deep sense of duty, and whose life, by every measure, stood as a model of success and devotion before any trial began. In the realm above human sight, an assembly gathers. The sons of God present themselves, and among them stands the adversary. Satan in the original Hebrew, not a proper name, but a role. The prosecutor, the challenger. The scene is not chaos, but a courtroom, with God presiding as judge. God singles out Job. "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, a man blameless and upright, who fears God and shuns evil." The prosecutor counters, questioning motive. "Does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you built a hedge around him, protected everything he has? Remove the blessing, strike all he owns, and he will curse you to your face." The accusation is psychological, not just legal. It claims Job's faith is a transaction, maintained only by reward. God responds with a boundary, not surrender. Everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. The permission is precise. Job's world can be touched, but his life remains out of reach. The court is adjourned. No explanation is delivered to earth. Job receives no warning, no hint of the wager above. The test is authorized, and the chain of events set in motion will tear through every layer of his life. What happens next will not look like justice or order. To those below, it will feel like coordinated ruin. Yet the limits remain, set by a hand Job will never see. A day that begins in routine ends with everything gone. The first messenger arrives with dust on his face and terror in his eyes. Sabians, nomads from the south, have swept in, oxen and donkeys driven off, farmhands cut down with the sword. The words barely land before another man stumbles in, voice shaking. Fire has fallen from the sky, a flash so fierce it scorched 7,000 sheep and the servants tending them. While the smoke is still rising in Job's mind, a third messenger bursts through. The Chaldeans, organized in 3 bands, have struck the camel herds, killing the keepers and disappearing into the horizon with every animal. 3 waves, 3 disasters, each more total than the last. The 4th messenger's face is ash. A storm, sudden and violent, struck the house where Job's sons and daughters were feasting. The wind tore from the desert, collapsed the walls, and buried them all. Each messenger arrives before the last can finish speaking. There is no pause, no time to mourn one loss before the next arrives. What was built over decades is erased in a single, breathless sequence. The world narrows to silence and shock, the future now a field of ruins. Job lowers himself into the rituals of ancient grief. He tears his robe, shaves his head, and sinks to the ground, a body responding to shock in the only language it knows. In the silence left by disaster, he worships. His voice is steady. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." The words are not denial. They are raw acceptance, spoken with the dust still clinging to his skin. Grief is not hidden or numbed. It is embodied. Every gesture a record of pain that cannot be explained away. But the trial deepens. The adversary's challenge is renewed. Suffering that touches the body, not just the bank account or the family tree. Painful sores erupt from the soles of Job's feet to the crown of his head. He sits among ashes, scraping at his skin with a broken piece of pottery. The body that once commanded respect is now a source of agony, stripped of dignity and comfort. Trauma is no longer just a memory. It is present, relentless, and visible. Even the closest bond begins to fray. Job's wife, watching the unraveling, breaks under the weight. Her words cut through the ashes. "Curse God and die." But Job refuses. His answer is simple and severe. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? In all this, Job does not sin with his lips. The suffering is total, but the integrity remains. The circle of support grows thin, setting the stage for the arrival of those who will try to explain the inexplicable. 3 friends arrive, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, drawn by news of disaster. For 7 days and nights they sit beside Job in silence, unable to recognize him through the layers of grief and disease. When words finally break the quiet, comfort turns to interrogation. Eliphaz speaks first, voicing a belief as old as civilization. Who, being innocent, has ever perished? Where were the upright ever destroyed? In their minds, suffering must trace back to hidden guilt. Their logic is tight, but their compassion is thin. Job refuses to confess to crimes he hasn't committed. He won't accept their simple formulas or surrender his integrity. Instead, he answers with a statement that cuts through accusation and despair. "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." In this debate, Job stands alone, insisting that faith can outlast explanation. A voice breaks through the silence, not from a friend or an enemy, but from the whirlwind itself. The Lord answers, not with explanations, but with questions that stretch across the universe. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? The interrogation sweeps through the boundaries of creation. Oceans held back, constellations set in their courses, wild animals roaming lands untouched by human hands. Job stands before a scale he cannot measure, confronted by a world that runs on wisdom deeper than any argument. He covers his mouth, surrendering the need to understand. The story closes not with a verdict of guilt, but with restoration. Job prays for his friends, and the Lord accepts his intercession. His fortunes are doubled. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. 7 sons and 3 daughters are born again into his house. The case ends, but the reason remains sealed. Job is healed, not by answers, but by AWE. Today, millions wrestle with suffering that defies explanation, just like Job, who never got his answer. In a world that still equates pain with failure, his story insists that faith can outlast clarity. Sometimes the only answer is to endure. What does that mean for you right now?